Welcome to episode 5 of Road to $1 Million Net Worth, where in this series I walk you through the exact investing decisions that I'm making, how my net worth is growing, and the mindset behind every decision. So if you want to build long-term wealth in a very simple and disciplined way, you're in the right place. But before we jump into the video, comment down below what is your current net worth goal. Mine is $250,000. It's been that for quite a few months now, so I'm still just chipping away at it. Alrighty, now jumping into the video, starting out with the net worth calculation. Now, if you don't know what net worth is, this is just taking all of your assets minus all of your liabilities. It's everything you own minus everything you owe. And so starting out with the net worth calc here, I have my portfolio that finished the month of January at $147,311. My home equity is currently $72,000. Like I say in all of these videos, I'm just going to probably update this once every 6 months because most of the equity just comes from the loan being paid down. It's not like the home's going up in value every single month. And then I have a high yield savings account with $10,000. This is mainly for emergencies or if little things come up, I can always pull from that. And then I have miscellaneous. This could be things like my car value. I also own quite a bit of camera equipment that, could probably add up to around $5,000 if I were to guess. If not, honestly, probably a little more, but I'd rather, be a little more conservative there. So $5,000 there. And then my checking and savings, I normally keep around $3,000. And then finally, a new category that I had to add in this month was my car loan. And I basically broke down this entire car loan a couple videos back. I can link it below if you want to watch. But I currently owe on that $10,719. So that's going to be a new section of this series, is basically the debt payoff on that car and how the progress I'm making on that. So we ended 2025 at $230,000 net worth, which was great. But in January, I did invest $3,000, but I did see a decrease of almost $7,000 in my net worth. And the main reason for that was me adding the car loan. Despite the fact that I invested $3,000, I had to add the car loan. That's a liability. I have to be honest and transparent here. So my net worth did go down, but it really didn't go down much. It was just $4,000. And if I didn't add the car loan in, then we would have saw a lot of progress. And I'll even talk about that when we jump into my portfolio tracker. But before we do that, if we actually jump into a breakdown of my net worth right now, my portfolio is currently 62% of it. The equity in my home's 30% of it. So that is 92%. So every single month, I mainly am looking at my portfolio and the swings there because that is the biggest asset in which I'm putting money into. And when I'm talking about my portfolio, I'm talking about my brokerage account, my Roth, as well as my 401k. It is all three of those accounts combined. So if we actually take a look at the portfolio here, I did end the year at $140,212. Like I just said, I invested $3,071, but the portfolio change here, I ended January at $147,311. So I saw a pretty solid amount of gains, just over $4,000, which is about a 3% return. Now, the thing that's interesting here is a lot of people, if you've seen my portfolio, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, but most of it is the S&P 500. But I actually do think most of the gains that I saw over this past month was because of SCHD, which is a dividend growth ETF. I think because we've had some, instability in the economy, sometimes people tend to flock more towards dividend stocks, and I think that is exactly what happened here. And so SCHD seeing a lot of gains over this past month definitely added to this, as well as I think the market did have an okay month, pretty normal, nothing crazy, but overall $4,000 of gains is great, especially when you literally go from $140,000 to $147,000 in 1 month. And again, I only invested $3,000, but the portfolio overall went up by $7,000. And one question you may have is, how did you invest that $3,000? All of that went into the S&P 500. Whether it was me putting money into my 401k, I did put quite a bit of money into my Roth. I think it was a little over $2,500. So the remaining amount there, just the $3,000 minus the $2,500 something, that is the amount that I put into my 401k. But love seeing the portfolio have a really good start to the year. I think we will be crossing that 150k mark by the end of February. But again, we'll just have to see. The market does seem very volatile right now. So, we might have a couple of down months or maybe even a down year. Who knows? But regardless, I'm going to be buying very consistently. And if we look at a breakdown of the portfolio right now, 74% of it is VU or the S&P 500. So like I said, I own it in my 401k, I own it in my Roth, I own it in my brokerage. So all three of these accounts, you add them up, 74% of it is the S&P 500. I have 18% in SCHD and about 8% in VUG. So overall looking really good. I love this breakdown and I'm just going to keep buying the S&P 500 all year long. But I will admit SCHD has been pretty flat for a couple of years, so nice to see some gains there. And I do love the dividend income and the dividend growth from it. But again, it's only 18% of my portfolio. Most of it is coming from VU. If VU has a really bad month, then I'm definitely going to notice that. Now, jumping into my investing goal for this year, I do want to invest $40,000. Like I said before, I've invested $3,000, so we're off to a pretty good start for the month. Right now, if you were to take that $3,071 and you multiply it by 12, that is $36,000. But one thing I do have to admit here is my 401k match does not hit until the end of the year. So I believe that December, I will see a very large deposit, probably somewhere between $7,000 to $8,000 from my 401k match kicking in. So even if it's $36,000 right now, if you were to add, let's say $7K, then I'd be at around around 43,000-ish. So really good start for January. I'm very happy about this. Now my gross investing rate, if you were to take that 3,071 divided by, the gross amount of income I made for the month, that is a 33% investing rate. That $3,000 is 33% of my gross income. Now, if you look at my net investing rate, it was actually 47%, which is awesome. That's even better. Part of the reason that it was pretty good was because the back half of the month, I tried to really make a conscious effort to not go out to eat as much and not spend as much money. And I'm definitely seeing the impact of that. So really good job there. And I do want to continue that. Now, do I think it's going to be 47% every month? No, I do not expect it to be in the 40s. I do think that would be a pretty crazy assumption. But even if it's like 25 or 30%, I'm pretty happy with that. And again, this next month will be very interesting, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But so far, good start towards that $40,000 goal. Now for me, because I already have that high yield savings account, I'm not really saving any money. Any money I have left over, I just invest immediately as soon as possible. And so I'm not sitting here hoarding cash. I don't really stack up cash and wait for stuff to dip. I just buy as soon as possible and dollar cost average over time, which all that means is just buying basically every time you get paid or just buying on like somewhat of a consistent schedule. So overall, very happy towards the progress on the goal as well as the investing rate for this month. January went pretty dang well. Now a new section that I did add in is this debt payoff. Like I said, I have $10,719. I had that minimum payment of $227. My goal here is to just pay off this loan, ideally as quickly as possible, but I still want to invest along the way. Now I have not paid February's car payment, but I did say that I would use maybe some of my YouTube money to pay it off, but I actually had kind of an emergency that kicked in over this past month, and instead of tapping into the emergency fund, I was able to use some of the YouTube money for that. So I'm not going to be throwing a ton extra in February. I think I'll just throw the minimum payment, but I will talk about something a little later that could allow me to add more money in February. We'll just have to see. So what I'm going to be doing here is just updating this because again, the goal is to pay off this debt. My interest rate is 8.7%. And I do have a calculation over here off to the right that basically shows the original balance, the current balance, and the amount of interest that's been saved by me paying it. And it's really just a simple calculation. It's just taking the original balance minus the current balance and then multiplying it by the interest rate. I know there's a lot more complexity that I could add to this, but for now, I think that it's just a very simple calculation and it makes sense to me. So that is the debt payoff that I'm currently doing and I'm going to be tracking every single month. And the goal is to pay off this car loan so that I can start saving myself that $227 every month instead of basically $227, getting to put towards interest or getting put towards any debt at all. Because again, a car is a depreciating asset. So we want to get rid of that payment as soon as possible, but still try to enjoy our life and invest along the way. And part of the reason I'm emphasizing this, although $227 is not that much for my overall income, is because it's a guaranteed interest rate. That is a guaranteed 8.7% that I would have to pay in interest if I pay that $227 for the next 5 years. And so if I can pay this off early, then I'm saving myself not only that $227, but that 8.7% of basically guaranteed interest. And I want to avoid that as much as possible. So what went well over this past month as well as what did not go well? The first thing that went well was I really wanted to focus on investing more and spending less because I did have a few weeks the back half of the month where I felt like I was more conscious about my spending. And so that was able to increase my overall investing rate. So I am hyped on that and I do want to continue that for February. Now, one thing I do need to work on is not feeling pressured to spend money for the sake of convenience. So for example, my girlfriend wanted me to get rid of our Christmas tree. I had a company come and take it and it ended up being just way more money than I thought because they basically charged me once they showed up. Like they charged me and they're like, hey, it's this amount. And I already had the tree outside and everything. So I was like, shit, I don't want to bring it back inside. Fuck it. Like I'll just pay it right now. When in reality, I should have just said no and just went, for somebody else to come take the tree. So little things like that, I need to make sure to just be able to say no and not feel pressured. That way I can save myself a little bit of money because it was a lot more than I expected it to be. It wasn't a crazy amount, but it was a lot more than you'd want to spend on a Christmas tree getting taken away. So the point here is just don't get pressured by spending. Like if you're put in a position where you don't want to spend the money, just say no and do not spend it. Even if it's inconvenient to not spend it, you got to stick to it if you really want to be disciplined. And so looking forward, the next goal here is $250,000. We did go down a little bit this month, but that's okay. I do think as we start to pay off that car debt, as we continue to invest quite a bit, we will see a ton of progress. And one short-term thing that is coming up in February that I've kind of, I didn't mention it in the video, but I was saying I was going to talk about it later, was that I have a bonus hitting in February, which is going to be super nice. I'm not sure how much it's going to be after taxes because I do think bonuses get taxed a little bit higher, but my 401k contributions will be pretty high for the month. And I want to be very calculated about how I use that money because it is a pretty solid lump sum and honestly the most money I will ever have received in a single month. So I want to be very conscious about what I do with it and very smart about it. And like I've said a few times in this video, one of my goals this year is to be more intentional with my spending. So I'm going to actually try and challenge myself to track my spending every single day in February. Now I recently did post a budgeting video. Normally I do it a little bit more high level, but this month because I have a lot of money coming in as well as a lot of money going out, I do want to just try to track everything as close as possible possible. So that is kind of my challenge for myself for the month of February, is to track my spending every single day, which may seem ridiculous, but it's honestly been a long time since I've done that. And I think it's a good way to kind of give yourself a reality check as to where you're spending way too much money. So that is the future plans. That is where we are currently at. Overall, super hyped to see the portfolio doing well over the past month. And I think long term, we are in the right direction. Like I said before, comment your net worth goal. I would love to hear. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, drop a like down below, hit that subscribe button. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.